Recently, Nikke's 1-year anniversary came to pass, and naturally, I wanted to do something for it. This game is a borderline perfect gacha game in my eyes, and to be honest, I'd say it's the only one I truly care about. Not even the ones that include my favorite character of all time have managed to keep my attention so strongly for more than a few months, let alone a year. So, in celebration of 1 year of its lovable characters, incredible music, intriguing lore, story and world building, and amazing, we're going to be ranking the many side story events throughout the year. Of course, this is my personal opinion, yours may be different, and that's okay! And based on what I've seen people say about some of them, some will be different from the majority. So without further ado, let's begin my personal Nikke event tier list. Starting with the first story event, No Caller ID. The story of this has Anderson task the commander and the counters to investigate a mysterious signal ARC citizens have been receiving on their phones, inviting them to a paradise, implying that some human survivors may be left on the surface. In the end, when they finally reach the source of the signal, it turns out it was just an advertisement for a theme park that somehow got turned on and broadcasted by itself. I don't know, maybe Snow White passed through the area and accidentally pressed the button or something? Even Shifty couldn't explain it. While overall the story isn't really anything more than a decent side quest, I'd say it's pretty good for a first event. It gave us a cool live 2D background, and had some entertaining banter between the counters. Unfortunately, I didn't play this at the time it came out because I didn't realize it was time limited and I was focused on the main campaign. But I got to play through it recently thanks to the Event Archives menu. So, it's saved from the Haven't Played tier and gets to take a spot in Decent. Also, I found out a little later that it's actually mentioned in the main campaign, so this one is 100% canon.
You mean someplace other than the amusement park?
What isn't saved from Haven't Played tier though is High Tech Toy. I think I knew it was time limited at the time, but I kinda just let it slip by. Probably would enjoy it since I recently cleared Chapter 18 and have grown to appreciate Laplace for more than just her voice actress, but realistically, it'll have to be down here. Up next is the obligatory Christmas event that every gacha/mobile/live service game inevitably gets. However, unlike most gachas that just make these events light-hearted, fun fanservice stories, not that there's anything wrong with that, Nikke instead opted for a much more emotional story. As a sort of Christmas miracle, our local daily amnesiac, N102 aka An, starts to remember events from previous days. Hoping to make the most of this opportunity, Rupee becomes a sort of motherly figure towards An, hoping to give her a Christmas she'll never forget. Everything seems fine and dandy, up until the final scene of the first half of the story.
I guess you now know what your wish is. Yes. Did you figure it out when we came to the Christmas tree? Yes. Come on, tell me. I'll make your wish come true. Right, sweetie? I want to meet my mom.
The rest of the story sees the commander and Rupee trying to find An's mother so they can have a nice Christmas reunion, during which we find out the reason for An's daily amnesia, some concerning implications for An and other child Nikkes, the reason why Angelina is so distant from her daughter, and the most shocking revelation, Siwent might actually have a soul! Overall, this event was what made me realize just how good Nikke's writing team is, and sealed my fate as one who will likely follow this game to the end. This, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone in between, is our first PK tier event. The first annual Happy New Year's event starts with the commander attending a fancy party on the Admire, where some of the Nikkes are dressed in some fancy dresses and some fun conversations are taking place. However, the fun is cut short when Birmingham requests you go up to the surface to search for a missing supply shipment. I'm not gonna lie, I had to watch a video to remember what the plot of this one was exactly. All I remembered out of that were some pieces of funny dialogue, the Modernia teaser at the end, and some rumors that the promo art was AI generated, which, as far as I know, has since been debunked. As much as I loved Sugar being a goofball in this event, I found it pretty forgettable overall. This story sees the commander work together with the Exotic Squad to uncover the mastermind behind a terrorist attack in the Ark before they strike again. They patrol the Outer Rim and save a boy named Joseph from an angry customer, who is later discovered to be the mastermind. If you can't tell from how brief that summary was, this one I also had to look up again. Guess there was just something about this time frame where events didn't really stick with me as much. However, my review doesn't change much because, while the story is alright at first glance, there's one glaring issue that makes this entire event so questionable for me. Because the Exotic Squad is led by Crow, and based on what I've seen in the campaign, she should not be this willing to cooperate with us. In fact, I think she'd be supportive of the terrorist group's actions. So, not only is it forgettable, it's questionable as well. For a Maid-based story event, this event was actually relatively wholesome. Or maybe I'm just not the target audience for this sort of thing. Probably that, actually. It's a pretty basic story about a trio of maid cafe running Nikkes wanting to learn how to make special chocolate for Valentine's Day. So they go to a factory where they talk to an AI with the memories of a former chocolate factory owner. The story's not much, but I couldn't help but like this trio of maids. Even though I usually don't like that sort of... Ade, huh? I think I'm just gonna skip Coco and Soda's banner and, save for her. Yeah. Oh yeah, carried by character interactions, by the way. Wait, why is the timestamp already on the next event? Where's Ade? Come on, she obviously has to have her own banner, right? They wouldn't just make 2 out of the 3 mates playable, that'd be stupid. What do you mean it's time for— Nikke's first collab event, a crossover with the popular manga/anime series Chainsaw Man. The event brings the beloved cast of the series to the Nikke universe, as well as some popular characters becoming playable units, being Makima, Power, and Himeno. They're pretty solid units. Power in particular was a part of my main team for a while, and Makima is still used pretty often in PvP, for the 7 people who care that strongly about PvP. Unfortunately, the actual story for the event was pretty generic and underwhelming. It was the same
"Ooh, these people are from a different world, let's help them get back"
story that's copy and pasted in many crossover things. Basically, the Chainsaw Man characters being dropped into the Nikke world gives off a D-wave signal that the central government picks up, so the counters are sent to check it out and meet these otherworldly visitors. In order to help them get back to their world, they have to fight and defeat a giant rapture known as the Gatekeeper, a tyrant-class rapture that is able to straight-up manipulate reality. A lot of people say this event is just bad, and while I don't know if I'd go that far, I think it's definitely at least incredibly underwhelming for a crossover as big as this. In this story, the commander visits an animal shelter, when suddenly, all the dogs escape, and he has to team up with Biscuit, a dog whisperer Nikke, to help bring them back. While not much happens in this event, it was a nice heartwarming story with no twists, which feels rare for the Nikke universe. Also, it did the funny title drop thing. I'd say it's at least decent. Also, I'm still proud of the joke I made on DWR when this event was announced. Anyways, but before we get into other topics, I would like to propose the question. What the dog doing?
Is it possible for a farmer
Wait, what dog?
and a goth girl to...
What the dog doing?
Wait, what dog?
Okay, but
Wait, what am I looking at?
I haven't sent it yet.
Yeah,
I want to know your answer.
Wait, what dog?
the answer is maybe?
Like, I was
Maybe?
I was off the Discord. I thought you sent something.
Oh no.
And I looked there and was like, wait, where's the dog? What dog?
Who let the dogs out?
It's funny that you say that, actually. But do you have any assumptions, though?
Nope.
Well, I'll tell you what the dog is doing. She's fighting freaking alien robots!
Oh, what the shit?
Damn it, Billy.
I'm leaving.
What the shit? Biscuit.
Biscuit?
Biscuit.
He said he was gonna go out.
Biscuit.
Congratulations, Billy. You finally made me break my own. I'm gonna go tag along.
Oh, he's gone. Wait, they're all gone. Alright, adios.
Now to take a minor detour. This wasn't a traditional event like the previous ones. Instead, this is more of a side quest type thing. The story starts with a distress signal from Shifty, who was sent onto the surface for a mission, so the commander runs up there to help. And shortly after meeting her, some raptors approach, and we get our first and only opportunity to play as Shifty.
Do you really want me to fight? Are you sure? Oh gosh.
She even has her own burst skill, which is basically a parody of Modernia's that doesn't do damage to the final attack. After a few missions where you play as Shifty, she comes to the conclusion that the commander and Anderson set up this situation to give her a confidence boost, and thanks him all while he's just confused at the entire event. Then we return to the outpost, where a series of really bizarre situations involving the many Nikke stationed there occur. Finally, after enduring it all, the final scene is in the commander's room, where Shiki-kan wishes for some Sleepy-kan, but instead is greeted with... Also, the counter snuck into his bed, which was kinda cute. This event was not advertised at all, so it was a nice surprise to log in and do my dailies and be greeted with this. For both the surprise of it and just being a fun, lighthearted side story, I'm willing to put it in amazing tier. With that said, this event also committed a horrible crime. The rewards gave you an odd number of gems, so now my gem count isn't an increment of 10. Moving this down to almost made me quit tier. Now I kinda struggled on where to place this because Full Fool's Day happened to come out on the exact same day as the next one. Oh boy, time to talk about this event. Cherry Blossom follows the story of Sakura, a Nikke who leads the Seimekai clan, a Yakuza-like group that controls the underworld. Members of the clan are expecting Sakura to find a husband to help produce an heir to the clan, even though she's a Nikke and is incapable of even bearing a child. So she asks the commander to pretend to be her husband for a fall wedding at a Cherry Blossom Festival. Additionally, they have to avoid being noticed by other Nikkes, out of fear for them getting jealous. The story ends with Sakura confessing that her pretend love had become true, with a genuine kiss between her and Pro Tycoon. This event f***ing sucks! So, I'm not gonna deny that Nikke certainly attracts some, Odd Fellows. There's a reason a common phrase for this game is came for the plot, stayed for the actual plot. But this event felt a little too pandering to a specific audience that's even more far gone than I am. As I finished the event, I was looking at the screen in silence, before asking myself, why do I even like this game again? Yeah, the story of this event disappointed me so hard, I questioned my love for the entire game. It did do at least one good thing though, that being the introduction of Moran. I love this doofus. Much like Ada, why is she still not playable? But without a doubt, this is the first event to hit the bottom of the barrel for me. Almost made me quit. Following that disaster, up next is actually one of my favorite events. The story follows Perilous Siege, who are basically the ARC's official hitmen Nikkes, and the commander working together to investigate a suspicious company, him and Dee going undercover as new employees. Eventually, they discovered the suspicious profits that the company had been gaining came from them shipping mass-produced Nikkes to the Outer Rim, where they're used for parts, weapons for gang warfare, and worse. Following this, they break into the CEO's home to question him about his reasoning, him telling the three that the Nikkes they sell are only the ones who are set to be scrapped anyway. So he sees these sales as making their deaths not be in vain. After some other questions, the commander is given a choice, to let him live or sentence him to death. As far as I remember, this is the only event where a player's dialogue choice has a major effect on the story. I loved this event for its tone and this route split, because really, both answers here are valid. It just depends on how you see the situation. Definitely an amazing event. And right after that, we received an absolute banger, and I'm not just talking about the Amelie song. Yes, it's time for the half anniversary event.
Let our hopes flow through the wind and say, let it reach out to the satellites and say, when we're flown inside the light, we can see another day. Across the land of lights, so pave the way, go towards a new day.
And we finally come to the halfway mark. OverZone is a prequel story showing the events when the Ark was first created, and the story of the legendary Goddess Squad, the first Nikkes to be given a unique body and the selfless saviors of the Ark. Or, at least, that's what we were led to believe. In this event, one of the few events that are 1000% canon, and directly connect to the main story, we see the tragic truth behind the Ark's origins, and how the Goddess Squad reacted when they realized the truth oh so long ago. This was also the first event to not feature dear old Shiki-kan as a protagonist, instead we're placed in the shoes of Dorothy, the acting leader of Goddess Squad after the death of their previous leader, Ula.
I'm starting to rumble.
Additionally, there's a visual novel-styled minigame starring Snow White giving more insight as to the relationship between her and the other pilgrims, as well as a pretty major lore drop in the final ending. The period when this event was going on, in my opinion, was the peak of Nikke's first year, and up to the point of me writing this, was the peak of my love for this game. In fact, aside from the fact that some of the characters here are walking spoilers for the main story, I'd say watching or playing this event is the perfect way to get introduced to the game's world. And conveniently, it was one of the first events to be added to the event archives. So, you know what? I'm not even gonna say anything more about what happens in this story. Just go play it, go watch it, do whatever you need to experience this event. I'm pretty sure around this time frame was when I even came up with this term of PK. Now, to quote a YouTube comment, depression is no more. Let's happy happy bunny. In a comedically jarring tonal shift following OverZone, this event sees the commander partake in an event held by the local casino. This is a tournament-style game of luck where many contestants will be eliminated until only 2 are left, in which they partake in the final challenge, a 1v1 slot machine best of 3 for the grand prize of a kiss from the casino's mascots being a pair of bunny girl Nikkes. Huh. However, one of the sisters, Noir, is scared of having to kiss someone she doesn't know, so they try to help the commander win by quote-unquote supercharging his luck. Despite its odd premise, the story for this was actually pretty nice. One of the contestants, who made it to the final round against the commander, was found to be cheating by hiding a remote control inside of Noir's stuffed animal he had in his pocket, because he felt that he was cursed to be forever unlucky, and just wanted to win something. Obviously this got him disqualified, but Mustang was so impressed with him for managing to hack the slot machine that he hired him as a technician, which was a pretty heartwarming moment. In the grand scheme of things though, the event is just decent. This event sees the commander getting mixed up in a gang feud, due to the appearance of Rosanna, the leader of Hedonia, who is being pursued by a group known as Red Grass that is buying an alarming amount of bombing materials. Rosanna drags him along on an investigation into the identity of this group, and uncover a conspiracy for a terrorist attack on the Ark, that would likely start a civil war. I quite enjoyed this one, and the live 2D for the final scene looks so cool. Mashing these two together since they're basically a two-part story, but oh my god, what an event this was. Naturally, going into it, I expected it to be pandering to the one-handed gamers, and while it certainly was, I was blown away by the second half of the story. Helm fans, you know exactly what I mean. The game's very first SSR unit finally got to see her dream come true, as the Admire got to participate in its first sea battle. It was such a hype moment, especially if you've had Helm as one of your main units like I have. The addition of a nice, wholesome emotional moment afterwards. Somehow, they managed to make this event so good that finishing it gave it the same satisfaction as finishing a 60-hour RPG. As a perfect blend of wholesome, hype, and horny, this easily gets a spot in PK tier. Now a fun little adventure starring our resident pirate enthusiast. In this event, Mass drags the commander and a handful of other Nikkes along on a treasure hunt using a map she found. Among this group is Frima, the usually tired Nikke, who is suddenly quite energetic over the prospect of finding treasure, so that was kind of a nice twist on her character. On their journey, they also ran into a mysterious Nikke who I initially didn't know anything about since I was behind on the story. More on that in a second. In the end, they find an old pirate ship with a delicious golden elixir. Overall, not much happened on this journey, but it was a nice little side story with the dorks of the Aegis Squad and co. And it works as a setup for Master Anchor's character before See You Again. It gets at least decent in my eyes. Silly name aside, this is actually one of the saddest stories in the game. It follows a stray cat named Ruru, who was taken in by Nero, a cat's whisperer, working at the same animal shelter as Biscuit. Things seem to be going well until Ruru's health problems start to become worse. The shelter Nikkes conduct a health test and find that they found Ruru when it was too late. And no matter what they do, Ruru is still set to die. Instead, they try to make the cat's last days as good as possible. Needless to say, anything involving animals is a surefire way to tug at anyone's heartstrings, and to this day I still see some posts saying, "Remember Ruru." Certainly, this event was a memorable one. I'll give it a solid. This was a side story included with the free Modernia costume voted on during the half anniversary event. By the way, we didn't get Diesel. We failed her. As if she was gonna win anyway. The story sees the commander looking back on an incident that happened when Marion was still with them in the outpost before she was given over to the Pilgrims. It all started when the ACPU called him over to the police station, where he found out that Marion climbed into the shit tank. Yeah. Didn't think I'd ever say that sentence when talking about any game or story. And so they locked her up to keep the smell from spreading. Pro Tycoon and the Counters take her back to their room to give her a shower, and afterwards they need to give her something to wear. None of the girls' shirts fit, so they're forced to take from the commander's wardrobe, which fit decently enough. However, they still wanted something more to cover her up just slightly more, and one of them asks if they have a doll. Marion, hearing this, insists on getting a doll that looks like Shiki-kan, and despite initially saying that one doesn't exist, apparently a plush based on his likeness had just been made. Without him knowing, which is kind of concerning. But regardless, they gave it to her, and she's happy and satisfied. Eventually they got called up for a mission, so she had to join them wearing that. Soon after, it jumps forward to the present, with Marion standing in an undisclosed area, showing her reminiscing on the moment as well. Before behind her comes her caretaker. Wait, that's who you were?! I thought you were just a random side character from Golden Ship, but Modernia's caretaker? You're like really important then, wow! Anyways, she's called in for dinner, and then we see just how influential the Pilgrims had been from her time with them. Overall, this event was just nice. We don't get to see many Marion interactions recently since her departure in Chapter 14, so seeing her with Shiki-kan in the main squad was very enjoyable. Amazing tier. And then, we finally received the event that was a long time coming. After being teased during the half-anniversary stream, the long-anticipated Nier collab finally arrived in September. This is a natural fit considering just how similar in concept these two games are, with feminine robots fighting to save humanity from even bigger robots. But how was the execution, and how was it compared to the previous collab? Well, there's still some ooh otherworldly visitor stuff, but it's less egregious than it was in Chainsaw Man, and there's a lot more interesting stuff here in the story this time. Much like Chainsaw Man, the Countess is sent to investigate another D-Wave, where they find an abandoned factory as well as 3 mass-produced Nikkes of the exact same model. As they explore the factory, they are secretly followed by 2B and 9S, who suspect that they're behind the incident. Eventually, they find the very same gatekeeper as the Chainsaw Man incident, who is endlessly spawning Product 12s and Raptures to fire at each other. The Nikkes do not respond to any stimuli, only looking ahead at their natural enemy, shooting, dying, and being replaced. The group suspect that killing all the Raptors will get their attention, but after they do that, instead they turn on them, firing at them and surrounding them. Just when it seems they're about to die, 2B and 9S spring into action, cutting down the mindless Nikkes and signaling them to safety. Once outside, they introduce themselves and reveal that the teleporter back to the android's world is behind the gatekeeper. They share a common goal and must figure out how to break its shield. On the side, A2 was also pulled into this universe and meets a Product 12 of her own, so they also have their own little adventure to go through. This event was a lot more interesting compared to the previous collab, with cool and heartbreaking moments brought up many questions surrounding what the Gatekeeper's goal is, and even some philosophical moments which both Nikke and Nier are no stranger to. I actually quite enjoyed this one. It takes a well-deserved place in Solid. For this story, the commander is called to the most horrifying place in the outpost, the school. Ignoring the slight Danganronpa vibes the promo art gives off, the event sees the commander be invited as an examiner for an exam at MMR Vocational School, a training school for Nikkes. He is assigned to monitor the class of Miss Marciana, a Nikke created to be a teacher, and her students, Rei, Ain, Zwei, and Tercera. After the written exam, the practical exam is set for the next day, and the commander is shocked to find out that this exam is a battle against actual raptures, usually on the actual surface. Though this year it's being held in a simulation room as multiple parties wish to spectate the exam. He argues that this is incredibly dangerous for the Nikkes in training, and eventually Marciana admits that she agrees but can't do anything about it due to the curriculum by MMR. As the day of the exam comes, Tercera is still absent as she was the day before. All of a sudden, a fire breaks out in one of the school buildings, but the exam is not halted since the simulation room is far from the blaze. Marciana and the commander go to investigate and find Tercera next to the elevator to the surface with a bomb strapped to herself, intending to blow herself up with the elevator to prevent the exam. As she reveals to them, she had discovered what happens to Nikkes who failed the exam. Unsuccessful students are given a mind wipe, with their bodies and personalities changed, essentially making them a completely different person aside from their name. However, this mind wipe is only done up to 3 times, and if they still fail even after those 3 strikes, they get scrapped. Marciana reveals that she was aware of this, but cannot do anything about it, and she urges Tercera to at least try the exam because passing would mean freedom, and sacrificing herself to destroy the elevator would be worthless since the exam was being held inside this time. In a pretty cool maneuver, she shoots both the bomb wires and the sensor on the elevator, removing Tercera's chance to carry out this self-destructive act, and convinces her to come back with them. Reluctantly, she agrees, and the 3 arrive just in time for Class P's turn in the exam room. With Shikikan's guidance, the squad passes with flying colors and survives another semester. But that night, we see Marciana in the dark classroom, writing a list of who passed and who failed, a pained expression on her face as she sentences the unlucky few to death. When her and the commander next meet, she confesses to him that she plans to expose the school's malpractice and demand for a change, to which he promises his full support whenever that day comes. This event had a little bit of an underwhelming start at first, but by the end, I was captivated by the tragic tale of this killer school. Despite my initial thoughts that this event would be whatever, it turned out to be pretty solid. Wanna know what's not solid though? This event still takes place at MMR Vocational School, but instead focuses on the commander's time as a substitute teacher. When he is unwillingly dragged shopping with students Naga and Tia, they overhear a raffle event for an item known as the Love Arrow, said to make anyone fall in love with a user if they're poked with it. They all decide, why not, and sign up for it. Because of f***ing course, the commander wins it, and both Naga and Tia want him to give it to them. They decide to spend the rest of his time as a substitute teacher, vying for his love, and have him make the choice in the end. After the week, the player is given a choice on which girl to give it to. I think you can guess on how I feel about this based on my tone. Yep, this is Cherry Blossom 2. Mostly everything I said about that implies to this. Overall, going through it made me feel like I was playing a cheesy early 2000s dating sim. And somehow, the story gave me the exact same feeling as when I watched or play Venus Vacation. With that said, I will give it some credit for having some actually pretty funny dialogue at some points. But still, it was kind of painful reading through this. Not to mention, the concept itself is kinda creepy. This is another one that almost made me quit. Obligatory Halloween event! This story sees the commander, counters, the ACPU, and Drake working as monitors for a Halloween event at the park. Among them is the ACPU's new recruit,
Hi, I'm Kiri.
Kiri. Kiri has the right spirit for the job and enthusiastically greets the commander and his squad. However, this leads to the reveal that Kiri has terrible eyesight. In fact, she was facing the wrong way when greeting them and was instead welcoming a commuter monitor. And, side note, my thoughts on characters with glasses is no secret, but with no ulterior motives for once, please get this girl some glasses. I genuinely felt so bad for her. Anyways, the group is divided into smaller squads stationed in different parts of the event, with the commander being partnered with Kiri in the spooky section. After getting jump-scared by someone in a ghost costume, Kiri is given a basket of candies, which she decides to hand out to guests. Meanwhile, Rappy is basically designated as the mom of the group as Neon and Miranda went to play at the game corner. They also receive the same candies as the commander and Kiri, and after trying them, find that they taste horrible and seemingly made them lose their sense of taste. Unfortunately, Kiri had been handing them out to other guests, and by the time they're contacted about the situation, they had already given out all but 2, save for themselves. Everyone regroups and works together to track down the culprit, who is hidden behind a wall in the gingerbread house, and it turns out, she had no ill intentions, she just sucks at cooking. This was a fun little event, but it was nothing groundbreaking, so I'd give it a score of decent. And now, we've finally come to the grand finale.
This is the final battle, give it all I've got. You think you're tough, so come on, bring me your best shot. I live for my crusade, I die for a crusade. This is the final battle, give it all we got.
We're finally here, the first anniversary event. Much like OverZone, this is a hyper-canon prequel story following the Goddess Squad. However, it's even further back in the timeline, meaning we get a glimpse at how they were back then, as well as our first on-screen appearance of the legendary Commander and Lilith. Story mainly follows 2 characters, Red Hood, a major character mentioned in the main story, and Snow White, who at this time had a more innocent, childlike appearance. As we know, the Goddess Squad was the first squad of Nikke sent out to the battlefield and had won several major battles in their time. However, it is revealed early on that Red Hood wouldn't have much time left, as she had been corrupted during a previous battle. Due to it being an early form of corruption, and through Red Hood's sheer willpower, she's able to suppress it and prevent it from completely overtaking her, but they all knew that she wouldn't be able to hold it back forever. Through the entire story, Red Hood's relationship with death and her fear of forcing her friends to eventually have to put her out of her misery is a major theme, and is the spark that led to this event having what are, in my opinion, some of the most emotional, most powerful, and heart-wrenching scenes in the entire game.
Baka! マヌケ！どうしてあんなかっこ悪い別れ方しやがってもっとかっこよく別れろよなんであんなかっこつかないいい思い出にするどころかあいつらの顔に泥塗っちまったじゃねえか帰るんだ私はまだあいつらに
会いたいよ。
ちゃんと挨拶もできてねえんだ 私はあいつらにとって誇らしい仲間でありたい。バカみたいにダサく別れた仲間じゃなくて最高に素敵な仲間でありたいんだ。
Much like OverZone, over the course of the 2 weeks this event was active, my hyperfixation on this game once again spiked, as the event had so many cool moments, Easter eggs, fun surprises, and major lore drops and implications. Of course, nothing is perfect, and there were some things I didn't like. But to be honest, 2 of the biggest issues would have been moot if I instead played the game in either Japanese or Korean voiceover. For example, no offense to Red Hood's English VA, but I found her delivery on certain lines to be pretty lacking. And I'm not the only person to think this. That I can forgive though, because we don't know how the process that went into recording her lines was. She could have had no context as to the situations she would have been used in. And also, looking at her IMDb shows she's very new to the acting scene, so I can forgive her for that. But the one thing that happened when playing this event in English that I really want to know how it happened is this.
Didn't you say only barbarians fight hand to hand? I make an exception for monsters.
How? How did that get past them? Aside from that though, this event was yet another absolutely amazing prequel story from this game. And even after the hard mode epilogue, the story was still being added onto through Lost Relics, which created even more areas of speculation and theorizing, and showed some events alluded to in OverZone. On a related note, it's pretty obvious by now that this is an instant PK tier event, but between this and OverZone, which one would I say is better? Well, in my opinion, Red Ash has some of the strongest moments in the entire game. However, in terms of the overall story, I personally think OverZone wins slightly. As great as Red Ash was, there's definitely room for improvement, not just in Red Hood's dub, but also certain Lost Relic stories revealed some lore that genuinely confuses me. Meanwhile, OverZone was just perfect. A beautiful tragedy, everyone has great voice acting, satisfying ending, fitting soundtrack. God, I love OverZone. But regardless of which one's better, both are PK tier. And there we have it! That's every event that came out during the first year of Nikke's life. While not all of them were masterpieces, a majority of them were quite enjoyable, and only deepened my love for this universe and its characters. Obviously, since it's outside of the first year, I won't be ranking Alone Survivor, which will probably be out by the time this is done, but I do look forward to seeing Ludmilla and Alice back in action. I don't really like Toad's designs though, I'm not gonna lie. But regardless, this has been a strong first year for this game, though it had a rough start with the glitches and ridiculous difficulty. But, as I said before, I never expected when I downloaded this game that it would go on to become one of my favorite pieces of fiction. But the gut punch of the prologue, the lovable main cast, complex narrative, and surprisingly deep gameplay in some ways kept me on this game. Despite the whole meme of it being the booty shooter, I'm not gonna lie, I sometimes genuinely forget that it's seen like that. That's how genuinely good the rest of the game is. Though, as a certain someone told me, if you forget, we'll remind you. But, enough rambling. In conclusion, thanks for the great previous year shift up, and I look forward to the future of the Nikke universe. As always, thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Farewell!